So I'm headed back to Atoy, because that's where I grew up. And I said when I was a kid, I would write a book about my childhood. And that thought has never left my head. And the only book series I ever read my whole life, still to this day, is Laura Ingalls Wilder's Little House on the Prairie. And when I read her books, I was fascinated by Laura because she was so much like me, just many years earlier. And I mean, she was a tomboy and she had all these critters, and I loved reading about her because I could relate to her. And but you know, I felt led to write a book about my testimony, and so I'm working on that book. But my husband kept encouraging me to. He really thinks I should to write the whole Little House on the Dairy thing, because when I was little, I said I'm going to write a book and I'm going to name it Little House on the Dairy, because we did have a little house, a wee little house on the dairy, and write about the life of a dairyman, the life of a dairy kid. I mean, it wasn't pretty all the time. There was hardships and there was triumphs, and what I love about it is that you know, my parents went into the dairy business fully trusting God. Like my dad felt that God was calling him to do this, and he stepped out on faith, and him and my mom worked their tails off. They did everything themselves, and so there were many struggles, many hardships, but there was triumphs too. And like my mom said, you know, God had mercy on them through so many things. And the one thing about my childhood, you know, good, bad, ugly, everyone has things in their life that aren't pretty. But all I can think about when I think of my childhood is the goodness of my childhood. And maybe that's because I choose to look at that, but I really did have a good, wholesome childhood. And all intertwined through the stories from even before I was born is God. And my parents laid a foundation of Christ through everything. And, you know, my dad was an alcoholic until my brother was born. And whenever my brother was born, he was convicted, and he rededicated his life to Christ, and he started following Christ in 100%. And he turned away from the alcohol, and he turned away from the friends, and, you know, he had to remove, like my mom said, he had to remove himself from the friends he used to hang around, and he completely changed his life because he wanted to set out a foundation for his children. And he did that because inside of me is a foundation, and that foundation is Christ, and that is what kept me from going so far away. I might have been had some prodigal moments the last 10 years, but that foundation is so engraved inside of me that's what kept me convicted and kept me searching and looking at God and trying to figure it out and not giving up and not just going, well, forget God, I will just live this world. And so I'm so thankful for my parents, and I want to get this book written, even if no one ever reads it, just for the fact that it's in honor of what my parents have done. I'm going to try to do this without crying. My parents, you know, listening to my mom the other day tell me stories, and I'm just like, wow, these stories need to be told. And even if no one else hears it but my children and my grandchildren, these stories of where we come from are so important. I would love to have a story book to read of my grandmother, who is my mom's mom, who grew up in the Depression, and she was one of 7 kids, and she was the oldest, and their dad ran off and left them all with their mother during the Depression because he got stressed out, and he was a pastor, you know, he was so overwhelmed, he just, you know, ran away and left my great-grandmother there with all the kids. And, you know, I just remember a few stories of them. They couldn't go to school, they had to go out and work the cotton fields. Like, I wish I had a book with all the details of the struggle and being able to read it and actually be there. And that's on my heart to do. And, you know, I'm gonna do it. You know, even if nothing comes of it, my children, grandchildren, and all them down the line are going to know the sacrifices and the hard work my parents did, and my mom's parents. And, you know, it's just my daddy decided in his generation to stop certain generational sins. And that's also what I want to put in this book, is that whenever someone decides in their generation that they're going to stop a certain cycle, and just like with my life, when people or my family or grandkids read my life, they're going to see that I chose, that I was the one that wanted to stop certain cycles or whatever. So, and to get inspiration and hope from that, I don't know, I'm excited about it, I'm nervous about it, I've prayed so much about it, because I want this to be a God thing, and I don't want it to be, you know, it can't be bad anyway, because, I mean, it's for my kids and grandkids. I want them to have it, because I sure wish that I had a books to read or stories to read from my past, you know. Like if I could open up a book that my dad or mom wrote, and my mom can't remember as much anymore, so I'm trying to reach out to family and friends that may have remembered some of this stuff from when they first got started in the dairy business. So anyway, so I'm headed to Atoy to go ask the current owners if I can walk around their place and get some inspiration and see if God clarifies some things for me. So anyway, I just encourage y'all to share your stories, to let the generations after you know what you've overcome. But most importantly, make sure God's in there. I'm so thankful, even though my parents weren't perfect and they had their faults and their own brokenness and stuff, but they woke up every day and they tried to have some kind of foundation of God underneath them. And that is what I see when I look back. When I've been typing out these stories and writing this book, you know, I get emotional because I can sense their feelings and the emotions of what their struggles were when they first got married, and how they relied on God. And so anyway, so I guess that's all I have to say. I will talk to y'all later.